Welcome back to the Black Plague Precision Podcast. We are here today with the Ryan. You may be the closest thing I've had onto the podcast right now that I would consider a celebrity in this space. I know that maybe you maybe you don't see it that way, but that is sort of how I see it. Appreciate you being on, man. I know you're fitting me in between a couple things, so thanks very much. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm all good. What an intro, hey? How good was that? I appreciate it. Thank you. It's always busy over here, so we've been one of our British junior teams for the upcoming British team member on the junior side. He lives pretty close. His father's a really close friend of mine, so we've been allocating Tuesday and Thursday evenings. So we're recording this on a Wednesday, and yeah, a bit later on, I'm headed off out with the thermal to go and take care of some foxes on some freshly cut grass fields before game birds get put down. So there's always something. There's
Oh
always
wow,
something going on here.
that wouldn't happen to be Noah, would it?
No, no, it's Riley. I know you had Noah on earlier on in the year. So it's yeah, Riley Jeffrey Cooper. He during the school holidays last year, he asked me would I teach him how to shoot for part of a thing he was doing at school.
Mm.
And of course, first thing I did was say, yeah, absolutely. And he picked things up really well, and he made first reserve. He shot 1.5 qualification matches last year, and he made first reserve, did really well, and he's along with the other juniors. We've got Noah is incredibly experienced. You know, he's done a few of these big shoots now, and the rest of the junior team don't have as much shooting experience as Noah does. They haven't been exposed to it as much, but they have been working really hard. And you know, whilst they want to keep working so much, I'm going to be there. I promised him every hour he wanted to train and practice, I'd be there. I'd make an effort to be there for him, and so far it's been every week. So yeah, good on him.
That's amazing, right? Well, let's talk a little bit about right who you are, what you do. For context, right? I did a little bit of research. I was looking around and I was like, oh, I didn't know he wrote. Like you have a with MDT, right? Part of like their blogging series. You have some writings on there. You're doing traveling. You were in Kazakhstan not that long ago. Hopefully, I'm saying that right. Doing a competition.
Yeah.
You've been on podcasts, so you're widely around there now. I'm finding out. Obviously, you and I connected because I'm going to film at the World Championship. But I didn't know you were coaching too, right? So you're doing a lot in this space. Did I miss anything?
No, I mean I love promoting what we do. Obviously, in the UK, it's a heavily regulated area for firearms, and one thing I love is talking about what we do, talking about shooting, and one of my favourite things in the world is to be the reason somebody gets to shoot a gun for the first time. And I've done that with a few people now, and you know, Riley is the perfect example. He was the perfect student. He listened, he wanted to learn, and shooting guns is cool. You know, first and foremost, it's brilliant. And when you're a teenage boy, it's completely different for him. Rather than tearing around a football pitch or all of the other sports that he does, you know, and the same with Noah. With shooting, the opposite is true. You've got to be calm and still, and it's nice, be that through direct input with juniors, some of the lady shooters, or anybody else. I'll give as many people as much of my time as I can to assist them in getting involved in the shooting sports. But in addition, like you say, I write for the MDT blog. So for my day job, I work for MDT. I've been involved with the company on a personal and professional level for the past 6 years. And beginning of last fall, I took on a position working for MDT as the international accounts manager. So I'm dealing with the international dealers, the international supported shooters, the shooting series, which, that's where a lot of the travel has come from. And in addition to that, I also write for Rifle Shooter magazine. I have a article in there every edition on precision rifle shooting. Sometimes it's a report on what I've been doing. Sometimes it's hints and tips. And again, it's nice to be involved and be the reason that more people are shooting. The way I look at it, if one person every year gets a firearms license in the UK as a direct result for me, well, that's one more person that we have that we didn't have the year before, and hopefully that'll go on. I like to be the reason that people are there and enjoying themselves, because I get so much from shooting, and I think the enthusiasm comes along if you're around me for long enough.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely have been somebody that I love to follow. Your content, just in general, is really interesting. You're clearly a strong ambassador for the sport, and you've been a connection for me in the UK, right? Helping me sort of navigate that space and figure out what I'm going to be able to do when I get out there. So, highly appreciative of that. And it's no mystery to anybody out there that I'm an MDT fan, right? My first rifle build was on the Premier One. They are a sponsor of Black Plague Precision, and so obviously I love what they do. I love their contribution back to the community, and it's cool to see what you're doing out there. The thing that you have done most recently was that competition out there in Kazakhstan. Can you tell us about that a little bit? Because when I saw that, I was like, I didn't even know there was shooting there. Like, this is the craziest thing I've seen. I'm trying to find every piece of content I could find when that was happening out there.
Kazakhstan was one of my favorite trips I've ever made. I've been lucky to do some really, really cool, really awesome trips to a variety of great places. So the Kazakhstan trip came about with, so I shoot for the Carles team, and I met with one of the guys from Carles at Iwa, Paulius Vilispauskis, who runs the Central Asian region for Carles and Swarovski. And he said, "Hey, how would you fancy coming to Kazakhstan? And you can do some training. Would you be up for doing some training and shooting a match?" I said, "Yeah, let me look at the flights. The flights were we looked at the flights there and then whilst we were at Iwa. I said, look, the flights are reasonable. Let's do it." So fast forward a few weeks, and I received my invitation letter, which was in Russian, and I had initially planned that I was going to take my own rifle. So I have in the UK, firearms licensing is dealt with by our local police constabulary at a county level. And our county police force is really good. I have a great relationship with them. So I gave them this Russian document and said, hey, this rifle that I've recently acquired that's handwritten onto my license, can you have it printed on so I can submit it to the Kazakh authorities? And yeah, no problem. So whilst that was happening, Carles put out the information for the training day, and this was when it really hit home that it was going to be a cool event. So it was advertised not just as I said, look, let's call it a seminar and do. I didn't know what the level was going to be like or anything like that. I'd seen some bits of what they do, what the guys over there are doing, and there's some amazing shooters. And then Carles put out this, in conjunction with PRS Kazakhstan, they advertised a PRS masterclass with me. And it sold out in less than 40 minutes. There was 20 Kazakh sports shooters that were going to do it. Well, that went out on the Sunday, and then on the Monday, some of the local military guys found out, and they also added in, as a little bit of extra pressure, there was some of the president's security detail and various Kazakh special forces guys who'd signed up. So the pressure was really on at this point. So the flights were booked, everything was confirmed, and the airline, funnily enough, they have a big page as to what it takes to take rifles into Kazakhstan, the extra costs, the paperwork, etc. So I had all that, contacted the airline, and they said, no, we will not carry your firearm and ammunition into Kazakhstan from London in the UK. So I said, okay, I need 48 hours to find a solution, and started looking at the alternatives. And it's always something that you have to weigh up with international travel with firearms. It was a 8-hour flight from London to my destination in Kazakhstan, and I could have gone with a connection via Turkey or via Saudi, which Turkey turned it into a 20-hour journey, and Saudi turned it into 22 hours. I have to deal with 2 different sets of customs. So I decided it's fine. If I can borrow a rifle whilst I'm out there, I'll borrow a rifle. I'm not fussed what I borrow. I'll use whatever I'm given. And Mr. Fyodor, who runs PRS Kazakhstan, he said, "Don't worry, I have a rifle and ammunition you can use. It's similar to yours. Everything will be fine." So I flew out there, was met at the airport, and met the PRS Kazakhstan guys. We spent 2 days setting up at the range, which, as the only place I've seen that comes close to this range, was Cameo. And they had 40, I think it was either 30 or 40 IPSC bays. They had 2 400-meter rifle bays, and then the one that we were at, which is 1.5 kilometers, so 1,500-meter long-range rifle bay. And it was a Carles DLR match, which is kind of a cross between a sniper match and a PRS match. So we set everything up for that, and we had the big Carles Connex container that was painted up to look like a Carles scope box, which was really cool. And everything was set up, and Fyodor gives me this rifle. I thought, right, I'll take everything that I would add to my ACC. The rifle was in an ACC Elite, and I took the slim cheek piece, some weights, and some bits, just to make sure that I could make it as familiar as it felt. And he hands me a case full of factory Berger ammunition, and I said, "Wow, this stuff's expensive." He said, "You have no idea." And then discovered that in Kazakhstan, reloading your own ammunition as a sports shooter is forbidden. So they have to buy factory ammunition, and because of some of the routes that the ammunition takes to get there, and how the licensing is, ammunition is incredibly expensive. Everything's expensive relatively in Kazakhstan. And a box of 20 Berger 6.5 Creedmoor with the 130 hybrids had cost Fyodor almost $150 a box. So I'm at the point where every stage I'm about to shoot is going to cost him sort of $70, $75. I thought, geez, the pressure's really on now. So zeroed pretty quickly. It was, again, ultimately it was a bolt gun in an ACC Elite with a Carlos scope on top. So I was familiar with all of those things, and zeroed, and we had a play with some other guns, and over there, switch barrel rifles are incredibly popular because in Kazakhstan they're only allowed 2 rifles on their permits. However, they can have an unlimited amount of barrels. So there was a load of really cool Blazers. There was an awful lot of AIs, Barrett MRADs, Desert Techs, and stuff that was on the firing line. And a lot of them were just the sort of guns that you'd see on any PRS firing line anywhere around the world. There was impacts, MPAs, a real strong MDT presence, which was great. So we sighted everything in. We all had a bit of a play, and we went out for dinner. And one thing that the Kazakhs do better than anywhere I've visited is hospitality and food. And something that endeared me to the Kazakhs is I have quite the appetite. And if you're going to put a plate of barbecue lamb chops in front of me with kebabs and diced meat of all varieties, whilst I was there, I ate everything from boar, chicken, lamb, horse is a huge staple in the Kazakh diet because they're more hardy than beef cattle. and it was so well cooked and so well flavored that I just wanted to try as much of it as I could and eat as much of it as I could whilst it was there. And food is a big thing in the Kazakh culture. So Paulius from Carles, he was often told that Ryan must be a good man. He eats well, and that's how you endear yourself in Kazakhstan. So we did this after dinner. We sort of back to the hotel, and it was then sort of dawned on me that I know how good these people are because I've shot with some of the guys who'd come out early to help set up. And if you're part of the Kazakh Special Forces Jiu-Jitsu team, you're probably a fairly handy person who's seen a lot, and the pressure was on. So I was incredibly nervous, sort of standing in front of these people before we started. I thought, what my plan was to start at the basics, and then we'll introduce some more advanced techniques and look at ultimately what I wanted to do is a lot of the ranges have temporary props like we have over here in the UK. I thought, well, actually, one of the biggest issues with shooting off of temporary props is that they can be wobbly, and I figured they're all incredibly fast. Because of the ammunition cost, dry fire is a huge thing, and one of the Kazakhs, I would love to see him and Francis Cologne race each other on the skill stage because it would be neck and neck. He is so fast, it's unbelievable. And, when you're explaining that you're looking for every single shot and you want to see where every single shot lands, and one of them asked, "You do this for every shot?" I said, yes. That's really important information. So by introducing the tripod rear and sort of helping them with stability, it then helped with sort of bringing down the natural cadence, just to make it more of a deliberate pace. And a lot of the guys were amazed that from a morning of input, they were more stable. Their trigger presses had improved, and with the tripod, as much as that is a controversial thing in the PRS, when you're at a range and you're dealing with temporary props and potentially wobbly things, it's a seriously useful thing. And for the special forces guys and the military guys, if it gives them an extra edge, well, they should have that, frankly. So they were really excited for the next day, and we went into the match, and being a Carles DLR match, it was very different to what I'm used to. So we started off with a cold bore shot, and there were probably 2.5 inch by 2.5 inch diamonds with your shooter number on that were on very thin, like plastic tape pegs that you hold, fence pegs that were swaying in the wind. And you had to shoot your number. Easy enough, you'd think, until smoke grenades get thrown in from the side of the range and cover all of the shooter numbers, and then the flashbangs, and then you have a 10-second exposure. So my plan for this, I thought everybody's going to go off really fast. I want to be the last person to take my shot. So I heard the hooter go, closed my eyes to sort of keep the sand out of my contact lenses, counted to 5, and there's still smoke over the portion of the range where my thing is. I see a glimpse of a Carles dog tag thing. I thought, that's got to be mine. I was orientated at it, got a good natural point of aim. I took the shot, and I hit the one I was aiming at. Turns out it wasn't mine, it was my neighbour's, and he actually won a prize because he, of all the numbers with a hole in, his was drawn out first, and he said, "I think you shot it because I was nowhere near." So yeah, we shot the match, and it was I don't speak many languages, and I'd never been exposed to Russian, so I picked up quite quickly some of the basics. But hearing a stage brief in Russian, and when I was doing the coaching and the seminar, I had a local guy who was translating for me who spent some time in the US, and I was squadded with his son who also spoke fluent English. So I was sort of trying to interpret the stage brief and then hearing it back through an interpreter, and I kind of took him under my wing. His name was Samir, and he'll probably watch this, so I hope he's still shooting as well as he was. And we got into some conversations about wind and various things, and he'd been shooting a few years, and that day he cleaned his first stage, which he came off with a massive smile, and Dad, I've just cleaned my first stage. And I was watching him through my binos. I get a little bit excited, and I was cheering him on and big clap and round of applause for him, because cleaning your first stage, that was the biggest match he'd ever shot, and he was absolutely bouncing. He was 10 feet tall. He ended up finished third overall in the tactical, and yeah, he had a great time. It was awesome. And things like that, I get far more enjoyment out of that than anything else. I mean, I shot relatively well that day, and I'm fortunate enough that I'm able to shoot regularly, so I'm an above average rifle shooter, and I think I definitely get more out of encouraging newer shooters and just being that good squad mate. And my wife started shooting during COVID, and we were talking earlier, because the whole point of us going out tonight is she's building up her portfolio of hunting experience so as she can have more guns. So in the UK we have to give good reason for every firearm that we own, and the more she can show that she has a need and a good reason for having a firearm, then the better chance she has of being granted permission to purchase one. So she's like, oh, the game birds will be going down in a couple of months, and you won't be able to get up as often as you will. And you used to just like going out on your own. So I just want to see you shoot tonight. That's all. I'm just going to watch her go about her thing with the 22 Creedmoor, and hopefully shoot some foxes for a friend of mine. If not, we'll have to go back there tomorrow night. And watching other people succeed in something that I love has become my favourite thing. I love to shoot myself. I mean, I went over to the the NRL 22 finale in Washington last month, and I had the best time with a group of people I'd never met, and it was absolutely fantastic. And then this weekend just gone was the European PRS finale over in Italy, which again was fantastic. If you imagine, Europe is probably like the US, so you'll know some of the people who are regulars and who travel internationally to matches, but there's a lot of guys who sort of only travel within their state or their country and neighbouring countries or states, which is understandable. And it was great to meet, so many new shooters and so many ROs, and the facility that they have over there. Alcate range is absolutely amazing. I'm looking forward to going back there in September for the Italian PRS finale and the Carles DLR finale as well. So that's my last centerfire match was at the weekend there in Italy, and my next one will be the same venue in Italy as well. From now on, it's going to be rimfire only.
Yeah, there's a lot there, right? To digest. That whole video series, that whole thing was, I think, such a bolster for our community. It was something different. It was something divergent, but it felt the same. And I was so excited to see that. So, I was like slightly proud to be like, cool. It's cool that I'm part of this community and this thing is happening. And they're out there and they're doing this. So that was really cool. And it's interesting. If you don't understand like international travel and the complexities of some of this, it's not easy to get into Russia. And I don't know if this is exactly the same, but I know when I was in college, one of my buddies was on the world team for paintball, and they practiced with Russia. And he was telling us like the only way you can get in there is if you're invited. And I don't know if that's still the case there, but in a lot of ways, it is difficult to get into these places. A lot of logistics, and so for you guys to navigate, make that thing happen, then get it out to the community so we can see it, and the diversity was awesome to see. And you're doing quite a bit. The thing with your wife and the hunting, my wife is she doesn't really care to shoot, but the times I do take a shoot out, she's really really good. Which I'm like, you should shoot. Like you're good. She's like, yeah, I know, but I'd rather read or whatever. So I love that you guys are out there. You guys are doing that, and it's such a cool event. Do you guys have anything else like that you're trying to do like around the world?
So like you say, the guys in Kazakhstan did such a great job promoting that event. I've been obviously I'm very close with the guys at Carles and MDT as well, and it was both companies have quite a big part are a big part of the shooting community in various parts of the world, and we're exploring some options to be able to do more events like that. Obviously, Carles have their DLR series. It was great to see Carles well represented with a strong presence at the European series as well, and I know they're wanting to continue to do so. So I dare say there will be more events. There's nothing concreted in yet, but there's so many great things happening in Europe at the minute. We've had just this past month, we've had NRL Hunter is going to begin in Italy next year. At the end of last year, we had NRL Hunter confirmed for the UK and for France. So potentially next year we could be looking at, you could shoot NRL Hunter in the UK, drive into France, shoot NRL Hunter, carry on driving into Italy, and shoot another NRL Hunter match, which to me sounds like one of the best road trips ever. And I've spoken with some of the guys in the US who are big in the NRL Hunter community, and the thought of being able to do that, maybe tie it in with them doing some NRL Hunter specific coaching and training as well, is really appealing. So yeah, I'd love to be able to turn around and say, how cool would it be to be able to bring the likes of Dan Bertocchini or John Pinch, Matt Allwhite, and some of the real superstars of that into what is a relatively new discipline over here, and have them pass on their knowledge to the community over here, but also to take them on a epic road trip. Driving from the UK to France is one of the best experiences ever, because we've got a train tunnel that connects the two countries. You just drive under the English Channel in your car, and you drive onto a train. 30 minutes later, you drive off. You're in a different country, and it never ceases to amaze me how cool it is. The only thing that's mildly disappointing is that the windows don't randomly have pictures of fish that appear at the side, because I just think that was an opportunity missed, because it's going to make everybody smile.
Yeah.
But things like that have been bandied about, and I know Carles are keen to do it. There's so many companies are looking at what's happening over here now, and I think we're only going to see more and more growth. So it's great to see. The UK, we've had NRL Hunter with Rimfires. Because we're a relatively small island, having the space to do centerfire matches, there's only a handful of venues that we can shoot centerfire PRS matches at, and not all of them would be suitable for NRL Hunter. Well, we've a lot of great places that you can shoot rimfire at, and the guys at the NRL Hunter UK have been, they've pushed really hard to bring in a format with 22LR that is cool. It represents what we all grew up doing with air guns and 22s, shooting rats around, and squirrels, rabbits, and small game and vermin. It was a really cool pivot that they did, and the guys in France have put on some matches in stunning locations. It'd be somewhere I'm really keen to go and just see where it develops. But yeah, I'm sure there will be some big events on that side of things. They'll be done and arranged, I would imagine, towards the end of this year and early next year. The next big one over here really is the IPRF Rimfire World Championships. I also sit on the committee for the GBPRA, and I've seen the amount of work that's going in from an absolute army of volunteers, from Adam, the secretary, who's been doing a lot of the heavy lifting, whilst Jack, our chairman, he's a serving Marine, he's the busiest person I know. He's been overseas since October, I think, November, on training in the Arctic and in the jungle. And Adam has been putting in so many hours, along with the rest of the committee, who've been liaising with suppliers, with the venue. West Midlands Shooting Ground is an incredibly well-known clay pigeon shooting ground. It's a wonderful shotgun course. They host some massive matches with 400, 500, 600 people turning up to shoot over a week, and they're fully committed. They've absolutely been incredibly supportive of 2-2 rimfire shooting, because from their point of view, there's less noise. It's another potential revenue stream. They've gone from being a shotgun only ground. They're looking now into, they've hosted an air rifle PRS match last month, which for us, an air rifle with a muzzle energy of less than 12 foot-pounds is an unregulated rifle. So if it's a low-powered air rifle, anybody over the age of 18 can have one, which means we've just opened PRS up. If they continue to get into this and support air rifle shooting and rimfire shooting, we've just opened up an amazing venue to a totally untapped audience of people. And air rifle shooting over here is so accessible that it has the potential to be huge and massively swell the numbers. And hopefully it becomes a gateway drug into rimfire and centerfire shooting for more and more people, which would be amazing, because in a regulated area, heavily regulated country like the UK, having more firearms owners and more firearm certificate owners is incredibly important, because numbers matter. But yeah, that's looking like it's going to be an amazing event. The ground and the organisation. So this year, at the West Midlands Shooting Ground, we've had PRS Rimfire has begun. So we're now getting everything that's happening in the US, and the guys who are spearheading that, Ben Wood and Tom Rice, are both on the British team, and Bruce Walker, who's also involved with the PRS, he was incredibly close to qualifying. So you've got 3 exceptional shooters who they're putting hours and hours in to help make the facilities and the places to shoot for UK and European shooters even better. I spoke with Ben yesterday, and him and Bruce were building props and working at the ground. I mean, for Bruce, it's a 2.5 hour drive each way for him to get there, and he's up there putting in work and making it as good a place as can be. And I think it's going to be quite amazing for everybody who turns up in August to see what's been achieved. It's quite something. I know we've got some of the US guys visiting this weekend for a 2-day rimfire match, so hopefully they can go back and spread the good word, and we can. It would be amazing for us to have venues, like K&M, like Cameo, with a UK or a European twist. And the way that the community is growing and the sport is evolving across the various disciplines, we're on our way to getting there. It's we don't have the availability for or accessibility of land or firearms in our part of the world that you guys enjoy in the US. So being able to do that with so many obstacles, I find it incredible, and it's something that I love to support wherever possible.
I love what you guys are doing over there, right? I mean, the growth over there is substantial, and I had an opportunity to do a article on air ability. He's a bench rest shooter out there, and his stuff was great. And we talked a lot about that air gun community and the growth that's happening out there. But I'm personally excited, right? Because my wife and I traveled together for a lot of these events, and it's a very easy sell to be like, hey, you want to go to France? You want to go, somewhere overseas? Like, it's a very easy sell, right? When I'm like, do you want to go to, the middle of Kansas? She's like, I don't know, maybe not on this trip, right? So we're excited about that. When I go out there, I'm going to be in obviously the UK, and then I'm going to head over to, we're going to go to Ireland for a bit. I'm going to see if I can connect with any people out there. And then we're going to head over to Portugal for a bit, out in Lisbon. And then I'll be back in the UK for the Euros, filming that. So I'm going to be doing sort of some vlog style stuff around traveling to the events and the filming I'm doing and things like that to try to bring a bit more insight and different feel to the community. Something that's a little more, on point or like that. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited about what you guys are doing out over there. Clearly, you're very passionate about growing this community and the contributions that you're having about it, having within it. But so far as your own shooting, right? How's that going for you? How's your competing doing? Your training, all the stuff like that.
Last year was a mix of some of the biggest highs I've ever experienced, and some of the biggest personal disappointments. So last year, I've got a background in air rifle shooting, and I cleaned a couple of matches with a air rifle years and years ago, and it was brilliant. I remember thinking I don't know of many people cleaning a PRS match. And then Austin Bushman and Ben Gossett have done it recently with Centerfire, and that's awesome. So yeah, last year I cleaned a PR a 22 match. I was shooting my rimfire really really well, and then I swapped out some wear parts in my 22. Rimfire has become my favourite because again, noise, small island, noise, rimfire is ideal. So I have the accessibility to train with a rimfire as much as I would like to. So I put a lot of effort in, and I had untold mechanical issues with my my rimfire right up until the second to last qualifier, and I'd come back from Cameo the Thursday before this qualifier, jet lagged, really tired. We drove over to Wales in the pouring rains. We'd just come from a high desert environment to Welsh Wales, heavy driving rain. Because of how bad the weather was, we shot one day of the 2-day match, and I was my usually reliable rifle. Whatever parts I'd changed hadn't worked. I was so frustrated that when I came back on the Sunday after the match, I locked myself in my workshop, put some really loud music on, and I wasn't coming out until either I'd fixed the problem, modified things to the point where they weren't going to work, and I was going to have to call in every favour I could to get a new rimfire, new rifle somehow. And long story short, I figured the issue out, and it was 2 weeks later I started my new job at MDT, went over to Canada, so I missed another qualifier, and I came back and there was one qualifier left, and it went down to the last two stages for me as to whether I was going to be able to make the team. And I'd had an amazing year up to that point, up until the qualification point where it really mattered. I'd been brilliant. I'd done some of my best shooting. Luckily, I remembered how to do all of that. My rifle was flawless, and I managed to shoot well enough on the difficult second day of the match to secure the last spot on the British team, which was great. And subsequently, after attending as many matches as I could last year, as like I said, last year was the most successful year I had. We run 2 leaderboards for Rimfire. We run the PR22 leaderboard and the NRL22 leaderboard. And for the 2024 season, I'd managed to top them both, which was how I got my place at the NRL22 finale last month. So that went well. One thing that I've done this year is I've massively worked hard away from the rifle. I've purposefully spent as little time behind the rifle as possible because I want to have that, almost like a dog straining at the leash. I want to have that excitement and keenness to get behind it. And I've spent an awful lot of time in the gym and trying to get fitter and aerobically and lose some weight. So I'm down just over 30 kilos, so what's that, 75 pounds this year. Been running an awful lot, and I'm now going to be behind the rifle training with purpose 3, sometimes 4 times a week in the run up to the Worlds, in an effort to shoot as well as I can and help the British team score as much as I can. And the great thing about it is I get to do it with my wife too. So she's been doing the same. She's been working hard in the gym. She's spent a bit more time training behind the rifle than I have, purely because I've purposefully held back, and sort of this next week is when I'm just going to be let loose and let out of the cage to train as much as I can. So I plan to have a dry fire barricade. I've been doing some dry firing between appointments today, and I plan to do the same, well, for the next 2 months effectively. So that's awesome. In a nutshell how it's gone.
Yeah, during one of your flights, you're going to have to listen in. One of the earlier podcasts I did it with a trainer out here, fitness trainer and a PRS competitor, and we talked about health and nutrition in this sport and how obviously there's a weird flow of like we're sort of transitioning into more serious money entering these spaces, right? Yeah, as an example, I saw Francis just won like second and won like 10 grand, right? And so $20,000, $10,000 purses, we're talking about once money enters the picture, people start to take it a bit more seriously, right? And that's not to say they're not taking their shooting seriously, but like any athlete in the world that's health and nutrition, that is butted up to the actual and the physicality that goes with any of the competitions you're doing, right? So it's interesting to see and hear you talk about that, because you never hear people really talk about that side of competition, right? So yeah, when you're waiting for a flight, check out that podcast. Let me know what you think about it.
We've got a long drive on Friday, so I'll have a listen in a couple of days. But it's been, I mean, I've always been a pretty big guy. Up until my early 20s, I played a lot of rugby to a decent level and sort of had a break from exercise. I broke my back playing rugby and had all sorts of issues. And after breaking my back, I got into competitive strongman, and I only joined the gym again because I got a bit big and heavy, needed to lose some weight. There was a gym across town that had a car deadlift, and I thought, how cool will it be, having broken my back, to deadlift a car? That's the gym I'm going to go to. And the strongman community is very much like the shooting community, incredibly supportive. And I got to talking, the biggest, scariest guys in the gym are usually the friendliest and the most helpful. I just got to talking with the guys there and said, well, hey, why don't you come and try training events with us and do some of the cool things that you see on World's Strongest Man? And they did that on a Saturday, so I went over there on a Saturday, and yeah, I spent a few years sort of lifting Atlas stones, pressing logs, and doing car deadlift. And as much fun as it is, I I like to do things to excess, and it meant I was eating too much, putting an awful lot of stress and strain on my body, and ultimately, with the history and the wear and tear I put on myself playing rugby, it wasn't a long term thing. So, shooting had always been something I did, and it became. I've been in the shooting industry for 12, 13 years now, and it's always been something I've really enjoyed. And shooting became a driving passion. I got into heavily into hunting, and particularly foxes at night is my absolute favourite. They're the I love every type of shooting, but if I could just do one thing, walking around in the dark and looking for foxes would be my favourite. They're a truly worthwhile opponent. And with the walking came in, and then I got to know Matt Hornback, who he worked for the US sister company as where my old job, and he invited me over to shoot PRS. And it was back when the NRL had the race gun series, and then after that, the rest is history. I do more PRS trigger pressing than anything else these days, but hunting's still my favourite thing to do, and there is something unique and wonderful about being outside when the world goes to sleep and you start to hear all the nighttime creatures come out, and then being outside when the world wakes up again and you hear, the bird song, and you can hear, you're in the woods, you'll hear squirrels moving around, and the deer start to come back into the woods after being out at night feeding, and there's something quite magical about that, and that's something I really, really, really enjoy. And
We'll have to
that was the
when
whole
we're in
reason, was
England.
I want to be a better hunter.
Yeah. A lot of people get into it for that reason, right? For the hunting. We'll have to talk about strongman when we're in England. I followed it for about 20 years. You ever meet Eddie Hall out there?
Yeah, once or twice, and again, biggest, strongest, scariest looking guy out there, and every time I met him, he was an absolute gentleman. He I think, like a lot of the sort of, he's a mainstream celebrity now. Everybody
Mm.
knows who Eddie is, and I think he plays a part which helped him market himself. And it was somebody I know who was involved with helping Eddie turn pro, which eventually led to him breaking the deadlift world record and becoming world's strongest man, which was a lifelong dream for him. But he's an incredibly talented athlete. He was a world class swimmer before he was into strongman, and one of the most driven people you'll ever meet. And he's incredibly smart. He surrounded himself with a lot of really, really good people that got the best out of him. Really, fair play. He's done really well. But I could talk about that sort of thing all day. It was a
Yeah,
wonderful community.
he's
I
a funny
wish I'd
guy.
found it years ago.
His new personality on Instagram just cracks me up. And I started following strongman. My big thing was bodybuilding. That was my scene. But strongman was always interesting to me. And this was back when Marges Pujanowski was, because he looked like a bodybuilder, but he lifted like a strongman.
Hmm.
This was like 2000 and probably one, right? 2001,
Early noughties,
2002.
wasn't it?
Yeah, sometimes around then. And so ever since then, I followed it. I watched, followed Eddie breaking that record and things like that. So it's a really cool, just like this community. It's a small community. It's fun to watch. And matter of fact, they actually here in Sacramento, they held last year, and I think they're doing it again this year. They're holding it here, which is
Yeah.
really interesting. So, um, but not to dive in too much to that. That has nothing to do with the shooting community, right? Just not don't hear people talk about it a lot, honestly.
No, and I think just going back to the original topic, something that I've noticed since getting fitter and dropping the weight is, like you were saying, with people taking the shooting sports more seriously, everything becomes easier. Being on your feet for 2 days with a pack and a rifle becomes easier. Moving through a stage has become easier. And, for the guys at the very, very top of the game, if they can buy spare capacity with being able to move more efficiently and easier, well, that gives them more capacity to focus on the task at hand, building that good position, spotting the wind. And when things are easy, I know it, when I came back from Cameo, it wasn't my finest match I've ever shot. The high desert environment I found really tough. I was close to the biggest I'd been. It was difficult walking up and down the hills because my watch at the moment says I'm minus 200 feet below sea level. At Cameo, it's a lot higher than that, and it was tough going. And I found everything a struggle. And I came back, and on reflection, I felt I'd let my teammates down. So something that I didn't want to do was feel like that again. So I can control if I'm going to go to the gym or not, and I decided that I was going to make the conscious effort to get fitter, make the moving around part easier, and then I have zero issue being motivated to go and dry fire or get behind a rifle. But getting to the gym, like dragging yourself out when it's 5 a.m. and it's dark and going to the gym to run on the treadmill for an hour is hard work. And that was something that I needed to do to help me support my teammates and make sure that I do everything I can to help them succeed. So it's been a really interesting year from that perspective, and I've noticed an awful lot of changes with the diet and nutrition and working with people from that background, because shooting isn't a sport you associate with training. And when people see videos of a precision rifle stage with how dynamic it is, the amount of moving that's involved, and you've got moments of chaos as you're moving between position, and then total calm whilst the bolt's closed and the trigger's pressed. And for some of the coaches that I've been speaking with about the diet and the fitness, they've been fascinated by it because they've never seen anything like it before, and it looks really cool. Let's face it, all of the guns that we're all shooting in the PRS, they're cool guns, and there's some that look amazing. And having, like, if you're not from that background, you look and think, well, these things are awesome. Like, I want to get involved and I want to be a part of this. And it's been really good, working with people. Again, they're outside of our community, and they've seen. I've shown them videos about what I'm doing. They've like, right, I want to help you do that better. And again, they're going to get to have a go at trying it out as well, which is super cool, I think.
Yeah, that's awesome. First off, congratulations, because that's not an easy task to lose weight like that. And the way that you sort of went about it and you're motivating behind it it's almost romantic in a way. Like I want to do it for my team. I want to do it for my power. We want to do well. Like it's a nice gesture, right? I think in general. So it's great to hear that. And, you're getting doctors, getting doctors in the mix over here. So that's never a bad thing for us, right? That's great to hear. Well, it'll be cool, to see, well, I'll meet you in person because we haven't met in person, but I've mentioned this on a couple of podcasts, and I actually just had Levi, on the podcast, and, I wanted to go up to that event, right? It's likely the closest you would have ever been to me, being here in California, and I just couldn't make the money work. I was just like, it's going to cost me like $1,500 for a 24-hour trip there, and I could go overseas or I could go to New York or whatever, right? And I was like, And then I saw that you were going to be there, and I was like, oh man, I should have went because my buddy was there too, and so missed opportunity. But I'll see you out there when I come to the UK. So I'm excited about that. Outside of that, we've heard a fair amount about how the shooting's going, the training's going, the things that you're involved with. Is there anything sort of around your world that we should talk about? I know that you're partnered with MDT. I know you're partnered with Collis. Collis has that new scope out, the 40 power, right? And so I don't know if you had an opportunity to jump on that at all. I know MDT has the new LSS Gen 3 system out. I hope that being with them, you get to play with all the cool stuff. Will you talk about any of that?
I mean, here's one I prepared earlier. Like I said, I'm in my office, so obviously day job involves MDT products quite heavily. So, yeah, I mean the
Mm-hmm.
LSS Gen 3, I remember seeing it for the first time and seeing the concept drawings. The, when I was over in Canada as part of my sort of onboarding and initiation, and my first thought was, I want it with just the short fore end and a folding buttstock,
Mm-hmm.
because that with a short barrel. I mean, everything we shoot over here is suppressed, so that short barrel thermal be an amazing nighttime hunting rifle. So that's a project for me for later in the year. Yeah, something that I've always admired with MDT, and it's even more obvious now I'm involved in the process, is how passionate and how motivated everybody is from a product and design point of view to not only make the best products that we can, but also design the best products that we can, not just for the sake of having product, but to solve a specific need. Everybody knows about MDT and the legendary Black Friday sale, the legendary this, and being legendary is something the company takes incredibly seriously, and it's been really really nice to be involved, and an absolute privilege, to be a part of that process and see how much effort and energy goes into it. So yeah, MDT have some super cool things coming. Francis is heavily involved in the mix now as well. And when you've got somebody like Francis who will dive into something headfirst, full on, and understand every aspect of it, I the new products MDT is working on are only going to elevate the company and the product mix even further. Yeah, I mean the Carles 540. I was fortunate enough to get one of those. It arrived in November last year. I spent quite a bit of time behind it, and what an amazing thing it is. If I shot ELR or more centerfire than I do, that would be my go-to scope for the rimfire with the higher mag and the bigger objective. I found the depth of field was shallower than my 328, which I've
Mm-hmm.
got. I've got a couple of those, and I ever since I first got behind the 328 and saw how big the field of view was, it gives you from a PRS perspective such an advantage. You can either shoot at your regular magnification and see more, or you can shoot at a higher magnification and you've got the same field of view. So finding targets is incredibly easy, and obviously Carles and Carles are known. They're obviously they're owned by Swarovski, and they're known for exceptional glass quality. And there's a lot of amazing scopes out there, and I know you're a big fan of the March, which Gary and the team at March UK. Gary's a good personal friend of mine, and those March scopes are fantastic too, especially with what they've done with some of the technology and some of the conversations that I've had with them about the potential for adding technology into those scopes is quite remarkable, and that's going to be an exciting space, I think. With if you think about the size of the new Send It level, well, how cool would that be to see that fitted inside something like that inside an optic? I spent a lot of time behind a Sig Sauer scope, and Sig have the levelplex feature in it, so it's got a built-in can. Well, it's great, but if you could have the familiar red, green, and blue LEDs, So you could not only, like you get with some of the thermals, you could have not only cant, you could have incline, and like Revit are doing with the radical smart scopes. If you've
Hmm.
got a heads-up display there, you keep turning that elevation, and not only can you see what your mill correction value is, but the heads-up display tells you when you're at the distance, which for guys who are hunting, if I said to my dad, "Oh yeah, just dial to 3.5 and hold zero point 0.5," he wouldn't compute that as fast as some of my pals would. But if I said
Hmm.
turn it until that thing says 500 and hold left a bit, he could compute that. And anything that's going to make, shooting is, there's a lot of moving parts. It's complex, and anything that makes the system easier to use is a good thing, because once again we're back to it. It encourages more people to have a go and to push themselves and practice more. And ultimately, if people are practicing and pulling the trigger more, the standard of shooting is going to improve, which means the standard of products and everything else will improve. I think it's quite an exciting time. We've had an exceptional 10 years in the shooting arena, with how the products have, how things have advanced and developed. You look at all the work that Brian Litz has done, and Igor, the guy behind Strelok, and everything has sort of been geared towards lighter, further, faster, more precise, and it's really exciting to see how it's gone. Um, the One of the coolest things, I see yours there on the bench, that I've encountered so far this year, is the Rock Vice.
Hmm.
It's I was unsure. I remember reaching out to the guys just before going to SHOT Show, and I bought one back in my luggage from SHOT. And to me, it was a treat to myself. I didn't realize how much I was going to use it though, and I think actually again, it's just one of those things. It makes everything easier, from leveling the scope to cleaning, and just having the rifle held securely. You can adjust the angle. I've fitted triggers. I've had a barrel action in the Picatinny clamp, fitted a trigger, dropped the chassis on, and anything that is going to make our lives as shooters easier, I'm all for. And yeah, that was another thing. The Carlos scope, send it level. You think of some of the other awesome products that have come out recently. I think one of the biggest things it's brought me points every time I've used it, is the Crush It timer.
Hmm.
And that was originally designed, obviously, Chad Heckler designed it, and originally intended for PRS. And in the last year, I've seen people using them for ELR matches, where they've got a limited time to shoot. Well, if you've got a reminder as to how much time you have left, that's only a good thing. It Again, it's taking away one less thing to worry about, because the answer's right there in front of your face. You know how much time's left, and seeing some of the different places and the different ways that things like that have popped up, it's been cool. I think MDT will continue to put some great products out. There's so many cool things bubbling away in the background. I know for certain everybody else is going to want to be doing the same. So I think as shooters, we're in a very, very fortunate time period that the whole industry is being geared towards. Certainly over here, we're seeing fewer all-round guns and lots of specialist, highly focused rifles. People want a lightweight hunting rifle. Well, they're building a super lightweight hunting rifle. People want a long, heavy ELR rifle. That's what they're building, and like a dedicated PRS rifle. We're seeing those, and it's great, because if over here somebody's got all three of those, well, that's three firearms they own, which is brilliant, because that's more guns out there, and there's more chances of them encouraging more people to shoot, and more people getting their firearm certificate. So that's kind of my thoughts on it. Anything that makes it what we do more accessible. As much as I remember when the SIG BDX system launched, that gives you your holdover in the scope
Mm-hmm.
when the rangefinder pings the target, and I absolutely loved it. I remember somebody saying to me, "Well, aren't you afraid that it's going to take away from the skill of shooting?" I said, "No." So if I wanted to take my mother out to shoot and to experience how cool it is, all I have to do is tell her to put that orange dot on that target and gently press the trigger, and she's going to hit that target 9 times out of 10. And
Mm-hmm.
that's awesome. If she then wants to learn more about the skill and the all the theory behind it, fantastic. But it's going to get somebody new out, not necessarily on a 50-yard range, but anything that makes it easier to go out and shoot. Shooting steel at long distance is awesome. When the sight picture recovers and then you see the bullet strike, that's a really cool thing to be able to do. And for somebody to be able to do that early in their shooting career, once they've got a good understanding of safety and the basics, why shouldn't they be able to experience that? Because that's what's going to keep them coming back. It's you can tell I get a bit enthusiastic about it.
Well, it sometimes feels it is. It sometimes is overcomplicated, or it's just innately difficult, and there's a large learning curve to it, and that's part of what I try to do is simplify a lot of these processes for individuals to help relieve some of that issue. But talking a bit about the new tech in the industry. I mean, we are in the age right now of tech growth in this industry, and so it's been very cool to be able to beta test some of the stuff, to be able to do reviews on it, and to see where the growth is going to be coming. I'm very excited about that. When I was at Shot Show, I went from ZCO's booth to Collis's booth to March's booth, so I can look at all of those scopes back to back to back, right, purposefully. And the Coloscope is nice. And yes, people know I'm a March fan, right? But it's because I shoot the 8 to 80 because it's designed for F class. Right? I have the F class reticle. But I started out with the 5 to 25 DLR from Collis. And I still have that as my main PRS scope. And so I've always been a huge fan of Collis. And I know when Philip Vallejo started putting out some of that content on the 40, I was like, oh, this looks pretty good. It's very interesting. I got to put a little bit of hands on, but it's not quite the same thing when you're indoors and ambient light and things like that. And MDT, obviously, I mean, MDT could literally put on a masterclass of marketing in this industry because the amount of content they put out, the quality of content they put out, and the entertainment around it is like any company just watch what they're doing and repeat, right? Because it's that good. And it's paired with, and this is to your point, it's paired with such great products and a care for the industry and a growth in that industry, right? And so that entire package to me is really really important for this community as a whole, right? I'm glad you mentioned the Rock Vice because it's one of those things where I was very frustrated for a very long time because I'm like, I spent all this money on this rifle and I can't find anything that I feel comfortable putting this rifle in, right? I'm like, if my collis falls and hits the ground, I'm going to be so mad. And, the only real option at that time was the Orange Vice, which was $1,500. And I was like, I don't know if I can justify tell my wife, yeah, I'm spending $1,500 on a something to hold, just to hold, right? And it's really really well made. Don't get me wrong, but when Rock Vice came out, I was like, yes, this is exactly the point, exactly the thing we needed to justify like, hey, we have these $10,000, $12,000 rifle builds. Like I'm gonna work on it, and I want to make sure nothing happens to it, right? And so you're right. Seen this really great growth in the community. We've seen a lot of great companies come in, and they're doing really well. And those old time hitters are doing really well too. So, I'm glad you brought all of that up. I know that you got to get out there and shoot some fox pretty soon. So I do want to thank you for being on. We'll make sure to get all your information out, your tagging out. I'm looking forward to seeing you when we go out there to the UK. And thank you for being on. I know you're extremely busy,
Thank you
so
for
thank
having me.
you.
Oh no, look, I appreciate it. If I can make time, I will do. I know when we spoke, this was the closest thing I had to a free evening. So whilst we've been speaking, I've had a couple of work emails pop up that I'll deal with, and then I'm going to go out for a walk and an armed ramble. Hopefully, Mrs. Charlton shoots a fox or two and keeps everybody happy until next week when we'll do the same again. But no, look, thank you for having me and give me the opportunity to speak to everybody who's talking. And I look forward to welcoming you at the UK and shaking your hand and meeting you in person. It's going to be a cool, a great event and a real gathering of uh, enthusiastic shooters. So I'm hoping that the British team, everybody shoots as well as we can, and I know the American team. I know a lot of the guys on the American team are training as hard as they can because what they've seen at previous World Championships and the build up to this one is Europe and the rest of the world is closing the gap in America. And Ken Wheeler said at the weekend that he doesn't believe it'll be long until golden bullets are given out to international shooters, and hopefully it won't be long before World Championship titles are given to, competitors from outside of the US, because that shows how much growth has been in the sport and in such a short time. I think back to Bitch in 2022, and then now how close the gap is, and it's good to see. So I wish everybody well, everybody travelling who's coming to the UK, safe travels. I hope you all shoot as well as you can do, and especially to my fellow Brits.
Perfect. We appreciate it. Thank you guys for tuning in this episode. Give a like, give a comment, give a share. And if you have a chance, get out to the range, take a shot, and we will see you guys next time.